What if the most powerful message you could ever send is silence? You don't need to shout. You don't need to explain. You don't need to fight to be seen. When you walk away without a word, those who underestimated you finally hear the echo of your worth. The truth is, people often don't miss you. They miss the control they thought they had over you. Stoic philosophy teaches us this. The strongest revenge isn't anger, it's emotional detachment. When you stop reacting, when you stop overgiving, when you disappear without drama, something unexpected happens. They collapse in the noise they once used to keep you small. And you rise, grounded in peace, armed with power they can no longer touch. You're not alone if you've ever felt drained by fake loyalty, manipulated by chaos, or trapped in endless explanations. Many have walked that path. But now, it's your time to reclaim your energy, protect your self-respect, and master the quiet confidence that only detachment brings. In this video, you'll discover how to stop overreacting, how to become emotionally unshakable, and why your calm silence commands more respect than 1,000 words. You'll learn how to use Stoic calm to rise above noise, reclaim inner peace, and finally, feel powerful in your solitude. If you're ready to stop chasing and start choosing, stay with me. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's walk the Stoic path, quietly, strategically, and without apology. 1. The loudest sound is your silence. They expected rage, they expected chaos, they expected you to scream, plead, and explain yourself. That's how they knew they still had a grip on you, because reaction meant control. But then, you didn't react, you didn't fight back, you didn't slam the door, you just vanished. And that silence, it hit harder than any words ever could. We live in a world that confuses noise with power. We're told that to be heard, we must be loud. To be respected, we must justify ourselves. But what if the deepest power is found in the quiet? What if walking away calmly, without explanation, without theatrics, is the most devastating response of all? Not because it's aggressive, but because it's final, clean, unapologetic. That's the kind of power Stoicism trains you for. Not emotional suppression, but emotional mastery. It's the ability to hold the line inside yourself, to stay rooted when others are spinning. When someone hurts you, disrespects you, or tries to manipulate your emotions, the modern world teaches you to defend yourself loudly. But the Stoic knows better. The Stoic detaches with clarity. He doesn't run, he steps back, not to punish but to protect his peace. Not to seek revenge, but to preserve energy for what truly matters. Picture this. You're in a conversation with someone who's poking, prodding, trying to spark a reaction. Maybe it's an ex. Maybe a colleague who thrives on subtle humiliation. Maybe it's a family member who knows exactly which buttons to push. You feel your blood rise. You feel the urge to respond, to prove your worth, to deliver the perfect comeback. But instead, you look them in the eye and say nothing. Not because you're weak, but because you're noble for that kind of game. You walk away, not with anger, but with emotional detachment that leaves them frozen in their own noise. This isn't ghosting. This isn't cruelty. It's what happens when your silence becomes your boundary, when you're no longer accessible to manipulation, when your value is no longer open to debate. You don't owe everyone access to you. And the moment you realize that the noise begins to fade and your power begins to rise, people aren't haunted by your voice. They're haunted by your absence, by the version of you they can no longer reach, by the reflection of themselves they're left to face without your energy to deflect it. They collapse in their confusion, in their guilt, in the echo of what used to be your constant presence, now gone. Not loudly, but completely. That's the strength of a non-reactive mindset. That's the quiet strength that doesn't seek validation. It doesn't seek to prove. It simply chooses. And in doing so, reclaims control. Next time you're tempted to speak, pause. Let silence rise in your throat like steel. Let it hold the line. Let it speak the one truth they can't twist. You've outgrown the need to be understood. You've chosen to be free. 2. Absence as a consequence, not a reaction. Not every exit is fueled by anger. Sometimes it's clarity. Sometimes it's the quiet realization that your presence has been wasted and your silence is the only truth left to speak. Walking away doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've stopped negotiating with those who never intended to understand you. They thought your consistency was endless. They thought your kindness was unconditional. They thought your energy would always be available. And then one day, it wasn't. No warning, no final message, just absence. Sharp, cold, complete. The world teaches you to chase closure, to explain, to defend, to sit in endless cycles of miscommunication, hoping that if you say the right thing, they'll finally get it. But they won't. Not because you failed to speak clearly, but because they were never listening in the first place. Your absence, then, becomes not a punishment, but a mirror. A mirror that reflects back everything they refused to see while you were still there. Stoic philosophy doesn't beg for understanding. It doesn't plead to be heard. It simply moves when the time comes, without apology, without chaos. This is not passive. This is not indifference. This is emotional self-control, sharpened by experience. The choice to leave isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your dignity, protecting your mental clarity, and refusing to be drained by someone who mistook access for entitlement. Think of the man who stays in a friendship that only survives through guilt. He replies out of habit. He listens, absorbs, supports. But when the energy isn't mutual, when the respect isn't returned, he slowly fades. Not with bitterness, not with confrontation, just with one less response. One missed call, one dinner was declined, until one day, he's no longer there. And the friend left behind scrambles for explanations that never come, rewriting history to soothe their own guilt. That's the power of absence. Not to hurt, but to end the pattern. To say without words, I no longer exist where I'm not valued. You don't have to shout that you're done. You don't need to declare war. You just stop offering what they took for granted. And when they notice the void, they'll feel it deeper than any argument could ever reach. Walking away in silence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've risen above the need to justify your departure. It means you've stopped asking for respect and started embodying it. When you realize your energy is sacred, your time is finite, and your peace is not up for negotiation, the exit becomes effortless. Not because you're cold, but because you've grown. So the next time someone asks why you left, you won't need to explain. The answer was in the disrespect, the inconsistency, the manipulation, and your silence? That was the final boundary. That was the moment they should have listened, but didn't. Let them sit in the silence. Let your absence be the consequence they never saw coming. 3. They feed on reaction. Starve them. Not everyone stays to love you. Some stay to provoke you. They stay to push, to prod, to test your emotional walls. Not because they care, but because they need to know they can still shake you. That's how they feel powerful. When you flinch, when you raise your voice, when your peace crumbles in their presence. They don't feed on your silence. They feed on your reaction. And once you understand that, everything changes. Emotional manipulation thrives on one thing: access. Not to your body, to your emotions, to your attention, to your peace. As long as they can trigger you, they believe they still control you. That's why they poke and then act confused. That's why they belittle and then play innocent. Because every time you react, they win. Every sigh, every defense, every attempt to explain your worth, it's oxygen to their illusion of control. So stop breathing life into their games. Let silence replace reaction. Let emotional discipline become your refusal. This is where Stoicism turns the table. While the world tells you to clap back, defend yourself, and show your side, Stoic calm invites you to pause, to remove the fuel, to become the mirror, not the fire. You don't respond to prove anything. You respond or not to preserve everything. Picture this. You walk into a room where someone you know well waits, someone who has spent years knowing just how to get under your skin. They drop a passive insult. It's bait. You feel the sting, but you don't bite. You breathe. You look them in the eye, then walk away. No comeback, no fight, just distance. Not physical, psychological. And in that moment, they panic. Because they didn't come for the truth, they came for the performance. And you denied them the show. Most people don't understand the cost of constant reaction. It drains your mind. It clouds your clarity. It keeps you in cycles of anxiety, needing to explain yourself to those who've already decided who you are. But when you begin to detach, when your silence becomes intentional and strategic, the dynamic shifts. You are no longer defending your value. You are embodying it. You are no longer reacting to stay seen. You are withdrawing to stay free. Let them guess. Let them spiral in the absence of your outrage. Let them talk to the echo of what used to be your energy, energy they no longer get to consume, because silence sharpened by awareness becomes the cleanest form of power. It doesn't just end conversations, it ends control. So next time someone pushes you, don't explain, don't perform, don't plead. Pause. Let your stillness become the space where they meet themselves. And watch how loud their insecurity becomes when it's no longer drowned by your reaction. That's not cruelty, that's clarity, that's discipline. That's how you starve manipulation and become untouchable. 4. Disappearance is the final power move. They wanted closure. They expected one last fight, one last text, one last attempt to be understood. But what they got was something they never prepared for: silence. Clean, precise, unexplained silence. Not because you disappeared out of spite, but because you no longer owed them your presence. Disappearance isn't running away. It's choosing not to bleed for people who watched you suffer and stayed silent. It's not abandonment. It's emotional clarity. We've been conditioned to believe that everything needs a conclusion. Every departure requires a speech. Every goodbye needs a scene. But some exits speak louder when nothing is said. And when you leave without fanfare, you don't give them space to rewrite the story. You leave them with the truth, the raw, unfiltered echo of your absence. And in that vacuum, their illusions collapse. Stoicism understands this deeply. Detachment, when practiced with intention, is not passive, it is strategic. The Stoic doesn't vanish because he can't handle emotion. He disappears because he has mastered it. He doesn't slam the door. He walks through it with steady breath and calm resolve, knowing that his silence will echo longer than any shouted goodbye. Imagine a relationship that drained you, someone you gave everything to, only to be met with blame, belittlement, or constant testing. You tried to explain, you tried to prove your loyalty, but none of it mattered. One day you stop replying. You don't block them. You don't argue. You simply stop feeding what was starving your peace. And slowly they begin to unravel, not because you hurt them, but because they can't handle not being able to reach you anymore. That's what makes disappearance so effective. It turns the manipulator inward. It forces reflection where reaction used to live. Without your words, they spiral through their own narratives, trying to decode silence that was never meant to be solved. They scroll through old messages, stare at read receipts, and dissect memories they no longer revisit. And all the while, you're already gone, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Most people fear being misunderstood, so they over-explain. But explanation isn't always healing. Sometimes it's begging to be validated by people who never respected you to begin with. When you disappear without explanation, you cut that cord. You stop chasing closure and start embracing self-respect. You stop fighting for space in someone else's mind and reclaim your own. Walking away in silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means what you needed to say wasn't valued when it was spoken. So now, you let your absence speak. Not with bitterness, but with finality. Because you're not trying to make them regret losing you. You're simply done giving them access to you. Next time you're tempted to send that final message, to defend your worth one more time, pause. Let the message be your absence. Let the explanation be your disappearance. Let your silence be the last chapter they never saw coming. Not to break them, but to free yourself. That's how the Stoic walks away. That's how you reclaim your power without saying a word. 5. You become the question they can't answer. They expected a fight. They expected drama. They expected noise. But instead, they got silence. And not the kind that fades, but the kind that lingers. The kind that follows them into their thoughts. The kind that refuses to explain itself. When you leave quietly, without closure, without confrontation, without giving them the satisfaction of reaction, you don't just walk away. You become the question that keeps them awake at night. Not because you hurt them, but because they never saw it coming. Because they assumed you would always be there to respond, to justify, to try one more time. We've been taught that closure is kind, that offering explanations is noble, that we owe people clarity. But most of the time, they're not looking for clarity. They're looking for control. They want answers not to understand you, but to stay relevant to you. And when you don't give them that, they spiral. Not because you were cruel, but because they lost access to the version of you who would have tried to fix it. And now they're left talking to a ghost you no longer embody. The Stoic doesn't vanish out of spite. He vanishes because he's evolved. He no longer needs to be understood to feel valid. He no longer needs to be heard to feel powerful. The Stoic becomes untouchable not by hiding, but by becoming unexplainable. There is no defense left to offer, no case left to argue. Just presence was withdrawn. Calm, final, absolute. Picture a man who gave everything: time, loyalty, patience, in a relationship, in a partnership, in a friendship, always showing up, always explaining, always fixing the mess. Until one day, he stops. Not with a goodbye, not with a monologue, just silence. He answers no texts, he returns no calls. Not out of pettiness, but out of emotional discipline, out of quiet strength. And in his absence, the other person begins to crumble. Not because they miss his words, but because they can no longer measure where they stand. That's the shift. You're no longer a person they can argue with. You're a mystery they can't solve. Your silence becomes a mirror, and what they see in it isn't you. It's them, their actions, their patterns, their disregard. And now, without your validation to drown in, they're left to face it. Walking away without explanation doesn't make you cold. It makes you strategic. Because silence, when wielded with awareness, becomes more than quiet. It becomes a consequence. You're no longer available for interpretation. You're no longer subject to distortion. You've reclaimed the narrative by refusing to participate in theirs. So next time you feel the urge to explain yourself one last time, to clarify your worth, to make your departure make sense to them, pause. Ask yourself why you're still trying to comfort someone who is comfortable watching you hurt. And if the answer doesn't serve your peace, let your silence speak instead. It will echo where words were always ignored, and it will haunt them longer than any apology they ever deserved. That's not cruelty. That's Stoic clarity. 6. Emotional control is a weapon, not a weakness. They think your silence means you've given up, that your calm is a sign you've lost. They call you cold, distant, detached. But they're wrong. Your restraint isn't absence, it's presence sharpened. It's awareness mastered. In a world addicted to reaction, your ability to stay unmoved becomes your greatest power. They can't figure it out because they've been trained to provoke and expect performance. But when you no longer perform, when you no longer rise to defend or explain, they lose their script, and you gain your freedom. Emotional control is not emotional suppression. It's not pretending not to care. It's knowing exactly how much you care and choosing not to let it break you. The Stoics knew this long before the world turned reactive. They trained their minds to remain grounded, even when everything around them screamed for attention. Not because they were numb, but because they refused to be manipulated. They didn't avoid pain, they transcended it. They studied the mind the way a warrior studies his weapon, knowing that one moment of emotional weakness could destroy an entire empire. Not metaphorically, literally. Modern life is no different. You're in a meeting, someone tries to humiliate you with a sarcastic jab. Every eye turns to you, waiting for the comeback, the snap, the raised voice. You feel the burn. You feel the impulse. But you breathe, you straighten your back, you offer nothing, just stillness. And in that stillness, their power evaporates. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't flinch. Because when they can't get a reaction, they can't control the outcome. When they can't control the outcome, they panic. Your calm, your pause, your silence, it exposes their chaos. You didn't just stay composed. You flipped the entire dynamic without saying a word. That's the strategy of Stoic calm. It's not passive, it's tactical, calculated, designed to protect your peace and dismantle their need for control. The world will call you heartless for choosing discipline over drama. Let them. They confuse chaos with passion and noise with authenticity. But you know better. You've been through enough to understand that overreacting is the fastest way to give away your power. You've learned that your energy is not for free distribution. You've stopped offering your emotional availability to people who treat it like a weapon. Next time someone tries to bait you, don't respond with fire. Respond with silence. Let your breath be your shield. Let your posture be your statement. Let your refusal to engage become the line they can't cross. Because the man who controls his emotions controls the room. Not through dominance, but through quiet power. Through invisible strength. Through the kind of self-respect that no one can rattle. And when you carry that with you, you don't need to speak loudly to be heard. You already are. Every step you take in stillness echoes louder than their shouting ever could. That's emotional discipline. That's how Stoicism makes you untouchable. 7. Let them collapse in their own noise. They didn't fear your presence. They feared your absence. They weren't addicted to your love. They were addicted to the power they believed they had over your reactions. For as long as you kept responding, explaining, defending, trying, they felt secure. Not because they cared, but because they could still reach you. But once your replies slowed, once your voice fell silent, once your energy withdrew, something shifted. Not outside, inside them. The noise they used to control you turned inward. And without you to absorb the chaos, they began to drown in it themselves. People who depend on control don't notice your worth until it's gone. They confuse access with permanence. They mistake your patience for weakness, your forgiveness for forgetfulness. But Stoic philosophy rejects that illusion. The Stoic doesn't rage. He doesn't threaten. He simply stops playing the game. And by doing so, he changes the rules completely. Not to punish, but to protect peace. Not to manipulate, but to detach with purpose. There's a man who used to answer every call, fix every misunderstanding, apologize, even when he was the one bleeding. Not because he was wrong, but because he feared losing the connection. Until one day he stopped. He saw the cycle for what it was, emotional dependency masquerading as loyalty. And when he stepped back, not with anger, but with stillness, the reaction was immediate. They panicked. Not because they missed him, but because they lost their grip. Silence, used with clarity, doesn't just pause conflict, it unmasks it. You see who truly values you not when you're giving, but when you stop. You see their motives, not in what they say, but in how they respond to your boundary. The Stoic holds his ground in silence and lets others reveal themselves. He knows that when you no longer dance to the rhythm of chaos, the ones who thrived on your compliance will stumble. You don't need to explain your shift. Let them wonder why you stopped answering. Let them replay your last words, looking for signs. Let them search for pieces of a version of you they can no longer summon. Because you didn't leave loudly. You left wisely. You didn't walk away to hurt them. You walked away to stop hurting yourself. When you step back and say nothing, it forces them to hear everything they've ignored. That's the quiet collapse. That's the echo of your absence. It rings louder than any argument, it cuts deeper than any insult, and it stays longer than any final word. So the next time you feel pulled into their storm, stay still. Let the noise pass. Let the drama fade. Let them collapse under the weight of their own chaos. You don't owe them a performance. You owe yourself peace. And that peace begins the moment you stop carrying conversations meant to keep you small. Let silence be your exit. Let their collapse be their own. That's how Stoicism reclaims the power, not with noise, but with absolute stillness. 8. Your peace is not negotiable. They took your time, your attention, your patience, and each time you gave more, they gave less. You lowered your voice. You bit your tongue. You made space for their chaos while silencing your clarity. You thought compromise meant care. You thought endurance meant strength. But they weren't moved by your kindness. They were fed by your silence, the kind that came from self-neglect, not self-mastery. And when you finally stopped giving, when you finally chose peace over performance, they called you selfish, cold, different. But what really changed wasn't your heart, it was your standard. Your peace is not a bargain. It's not something you trade for approval or validation or temporary comfort. The moment you make it negotiable, you tell the world that your well-being can be bought. And some will take that offer. Some will test your boundaries not because they hate you, but because they know you won't hold the line. That's not their fault. That's your responsibility. The Stoic understands this. He knows that inner peace is not granted, it's earned. Through restraint, through detachment, through quiet commitment to his own center, no matter how loud the world becomes. Imagine a man who always says yes, always listens, always shows up, at work, at home, with friends. Until one morning his body says no before he can. He's exhausted, resentful, bitter. Not because he gave too much, but because he gave without balance. That day he chooses silence. Not the silence of retreat, but the silence of reclamation. He stops answering out of guilt, he stops giving out of fear, and instead he starts protecting what was always his energy, his time, his inner stillness. Peace in this world is radical. It means not picking up the phone just to avoid conflict. It means leaving the message unread. It means choosing solitude over conversations that leave you emptier. And it means holding your space even when it confuses or disappoints those who benefited from your self-abandonment. Because the longer you tolerate what drains you, the further you drift from yourself. Many confuse being agreeable with being kind, but true kindness begins with self-respect. Stoicism doesn't teach us to be emotionless. It teaches us to be rooted, unmoved by external noise, unshaken by others' disappointment, because peace is power, and power doesn't beg to be understood. It simply stands, quiet and unwavering. So when they say you've changed, don't argue. When they ask why you're distant, don't explain. Let your silence speak. Let your calm presence be the line they no longer get to cross. Not because you're cruel, but because you've learned the cost of peace, and you've decided you're no longer willing to pay it for anyone else. That's not arrogance, that's alignment, that's clarity. That's what it means to protect your energy with intention, to walk away not with bitterness, but with conviction. And to remember always that your peace is not up for negotiation. It's the foundation of everything you are. And from now on, it's non-refundable. Silence is not emptiness. It's not the absence of thought or weakness of will. It's a deliberate choice. A weapon forged through emotional self-mastery and the quiet strength of knowing your worth. In a world that constantly pulls you to react, to explain, to prove, choosing silence is power. Walking away without noise isn't retreating. It's reclamation. The man who no longer needs to speak to be respected has already won a battle most never see. Everything we've explored, detachment, calm, discipline, peace, isn't theory. It's practice, daily, quietly, in the moments no one sees. When you choose not to respond to disrespect, when you guard your energy like it's sacred, when you stop allowing others to disturb your inner clarity, that is where transformation begins. That is where Stoic power lives. Your peace is not something you owe to others. Your reactions are not public property. Your stillness does not need their permission. Let them talk. Let them spiral. Let them collapse in the noise they created. You have no obligation to correct them. Your silence will speak long after their voices fade. Your absence will echo where your presence was once taken for granted. Train yourself to be emotionally untouchable. Let calm be your daily ritual. Let detachment be your armor. And let quiet self-respect shape your every move. This is not the loud path. It's not dramatic, but it is strong. It is strategic, and it will change the way people treat you, not because you demand it, but because you no longer tolerate what doesn't align with your inner truth. If you've ever walked away in silence, share your story in the comments below. Let others know they're not alone in reclaiming their voice by choosing not to speak. This is Stoic clarity. This is your power. Use it wisely and use it every day.